American football evolved from the sports of rugby and soccer. Rugby, like American football, is a sport in which two competing teams vie for control of a ball, which can be kicked through a set of goalposts or run into the opponent's goal area to score points.
What is considered to be the first American football game was played on Saturday, November 6, 1869, between Rutgers and Princeton, two college teams. They consisted of 25 players per team and used a round ball that could not be picked up or carried. It could, however, be kicked or batted with the feet, hands, head or sides, with the objective being to advance it into the opponent's goal. Rutgers won the game 6-4. Collegiate play continued for several years with matches played using the rules of the host school. Representatives of Yale, Columbia, Princeton and Rutgers met on Sunday, October 19, 1873, to create a standard set of rules for use by all schools. Teams were set at 20 players each, and fields of 400 by 250 feet, 122 times 76 meters were specified. Harvard abstained from the conference, as they favored a rugby-style game that allowed running with the ball. After playing McGill University using both American, known as the Boston game, for the first game and the Canadian rugby rules for the second one, the Harvard players preferred the Canadian style of having only 11 men on the field, running the ball without having to be chased by an opponent, the forward pass, tackling, and using an oblong instead of a round ball.
An 1875 Harvard-Yale game played under rugby-style rules was observed by two Princeton athletes who were impressed by it. They introduced the sport to Princeton, a feat the Professional Football Researchers Association compared to selling refrigerators to Eskimos. Princeton, Harvard, Yale, and Columbia then agreed to intercollegiate play using a form of rugby union rules with a modified scoring system. These schools formed the Intercollegiate Football Association, although Yale did not join until 1879. Yale player Walter Kent, now regarded as the father of American football, secured rule changes in 1880 that reduced the size of each team from 15 to 11 players and instituted the snap to replace the chaotic and inconsistent scrum. While the game between Rutgers and Princeton is commonly considered the first American football game, several years prior in 1862, the Oneida Football Club formed, as the oldest known football club in the United States. The team consisted of graduates of Boston's elite preparatory schools and played from 1862 to 1865.
The introduction of the snap resulted in an unexpected consequence. Before the snap, the strategy had been to punt if a scrum resulted in bad field position. However, a group of Princeton players realized that as the snap was uncontested, they could now hold the ball indefinitely to prevent their opponent from scoring. In 1881, in a game between Yale and Princeton, both teams used this strategy to maintain their undefeated records. Each team held the ball, gaining no ground, for an entire half, resulting in a 0-0 tie. This block game proved extremely unpopular with both team spectators and fans.
A rule change was necessary to prevent this strategy from taking hold, and a reversion to the scrum was considered. However, Camp successfully proposed a rule in 1882 that limited each team to 3 downs, or tackles, to advance the ball 5 yards. 4.6 meters. Failure to advance the ball the required distance within those 3 downs would result in control of the ball being forfeited to the other team. This change effectively made American football a separate sport from rugby, and the resulting 5-yard lines added to the field to measure distances made it resemble a gridiron in appearance. Other major rule changes included a reduction of the field size to 110 by 53 plus a third yards. 100.6 times 48.8 meters, and the adoption of a scoring system that awarded 4 points for a touchdown, 2 for a safety and a goal following a touchdown, and 5 for a goal from the field. Additionally, tackling below the waist was legalized, and a static line of scrimmage was instituted.
Despite these new rules, football remained a violent sport. Dangerous mass formations like the flying wedge resulted in serious injuries and deaths. In 1905, peak of 19 fatalities nationwide resulted in a threat by President Teddy Roosevelt to abolish the game unless major changes were made. In response, 62 colleges and universities met in New York City, US of A to discuss rule changes on Thursday, December 28, 1905. These proceedings resulted in the formation of the Intercollegiate Athletic Association of the United States, later renamed the National Collegiate Athletic Association, or NCAA for short.
The legal forward pass was introduced in 1906. Although its effect was initially minimal due to the restrictions placed on its use, the idea of a 40-yard wider field was opposed by Harvard due to the size of the new Harvard Stadium. Other rule changes introduced that year included the reduction of playing time from 70 to 60 minutes and an increase of the distance required for a first down from 5 to 10 yards, 4.6 to 9.1 meters, to reduce infighting and dirty play between teams. The neutral zone was created along the width of the football before the snap. Scoring was also adjusted. Points awarded for field goals were reduced to 3 in 1909 and points for touchdowns were raised to 6 in 1912. Also in the same following year, which is 1912, the field was shortened to 100 yards, 91 meters long, 2 10-yard long, 9.1 meters, and zones were created, and teams were given 4 downs instead of 3 to advance the ball 10 yards, 9.1 meters. The roughing the passer penalty was implemented in 1914, and eligible players were first allowed to catch the ball anywhere on the field in 1918.
On Saturday, November 12, 1892, Pudge Heffelfinger was paid 500 US of American dollars, equivalent to 16,285 US of American dollars in 2022, to play a game for the Allegheny Athletic Association in a match against the Pittsburgh Athletic Club. This is the first recorded instance of a player being paid to participate in a game of American football, although many athletic clubs in the 1880s offered indirect benefits, such as helping players attain employment, giving out trophies or watches that players could pawn for money, or paying double in expense money. Despite these extra benefits, the game had a strict sense of amateurism at the time, and direct payment to players was frowned upon, if not prohibited outright.
Over time, professional play became increasingly common, and with it came rising salaries and unpredictable player movement, as well as the illegal payment of college players who were still in school. The National Football League, of NFL for short, a group of professional teams that was originally established in 1920 as the American Professional Football Association, aimed to solve these problems. This new league's stated goals included an end to bidding wars over players, prevention of the use of college players, and abolition of the practice of paying players to leave another team. By 1922, the NFL had established itself as America's premier professional football league.
The dominant form of football at the time was played at the collegiate level. The upstart NFL received a boost to its legitimacy in 1925. However, when an NFL team, the Pottsville Bruins, defeated a team of Notre Dame All-Stars in an exhibition game, a greater emphasis on the passing game helped professional football to distinguish itself further from the college game during the late 1930s. Football, in general, became increasingly popular following the 1958 NFL Championship game, a match between the Baltimore Colts and the New York Giants that is still referred to as the greatest game ever played. The game, a 23-17 overtime victory by the Colts, was seen by millions of television viewers and had a major influence on the popularity of the sport. This, along with the innovations introduced by the new American Football League, of AFL for short, in the early 1960s era, helped football to become the most popular sport in the United States by the mid-1960s.
The rival AFL arose in 1960, and challenged the NFL's dominance. The AFL began in relative obscurity but eventually thrived, with an initial television contract with the American Broadcasting Channel Network. The AFL's existence forced the conservative NFL to expand to Dallas and Minnesota in an attempt to destroy the new league. Meanwhile, the AFL introduced many new features to professional football in the United States of America. An official time was kept on a scoreboard clock rather than on a watch in the referee's pocket, as the NFL did optional two-point conversions by pass or run after touchdowns, names on the jerseys of players, and several others, including expansion of the role of minority players, actively recruited by the league in contrast to the NFL. The AFL also signed several star college players who had also been drafted by NFL teams. Competition for players heated up in 1965, when the AFL New York Jets signed rookie Joe Namath to a then record of $437,000 US of American dollar contract equivalent to $2,910,000 US of American dollars in 2021, a 5-year $40 million US of American dollars. The National Broadcasting Company channel contract followed, which helped to sustain the young league. The bidding war for players ended in 1966 when NFL owners approached the AFL regarding a merger, and the two leagues agreed on one that took full effect in 1970. This agreement provided for a common draft that would take place each year, and it instituted an annual World Championship game to be played between the champions of each league. This championship game began play at the end of the 1966 season. Once the merger was completed, it was no longer a championship game between two leagues and reverted to the NFL championship game, which came to be known as the Super Bowl.
College football maintained a tradition of postseason bowl games. Each bowl game was associated with a particular conference, and earning a spot in a bowl game was the reward for winning a conference. This arrangement was profitable, but it tended to prevent the two top-ranked teams from meeting in a true national championship game, as they would normally be committed to the bowl games of their respective conferences. Several systems have been used since 1992 to determine a national champion of college football. The first was the Bowl Coalition, in place from 1992 to 1994. This was replaced in 1995 by the Bowl Alliance, which gave way in 1997 to the Bowl Championship Series, of the BCS for short. The BCS arrangement proved to be controversial, and was replaced in 2014 by the College Football Playoff, or known as the CFP for short.
In conclusion, number 1. American football, referred to simply as football, both in the United States of America and in Canada, also known as gridiron, is a team sport played by two teams of 11 players on a rectangular field with goalposts at each end. The offense, the team with possession of the oval-shaped football, attempts to advance down the field by running with the ball or passing it, while the defense, the team without possession of the ball, aims to stop the offense's advance and to take control of the ball for themselves. The offense must advance at least 10 yards in 4 downs or plays. If they fail, they turn over the football to the defense, but if they succeed, they are given a new set of 4 downs to continue the drive. Points are scored primarily by advancing the ball into the opposing team's end zone for a touchdown or kicking the ball through the opponent's goalposts for a field goal. The team with the most points at the end of a game wins.
Conclusion number 2. American football evolved in the United States of America, originating from the sports of soccer and rugby. The first American football match was played on once again, Saturday, November 6, 1869, between two college teams, Rutgers and Princeton, using rules based on the rules of soccer at the time. A set of rule changes drawn up from 1880 onward by Walter Camp, the father of American football, established the snap, the line of scrimmage, 11-player teams, and the concept of downs. Later rule changes legalized the forward pass, created the neutral zone and specified the size and shape of the football. The sport is closely related to Canadian football, which evolved in parallel with and at the same time as the American game. Although its rules were developed independently from those of camp, most of the features that distinguish American football from rugby and soccer are also present in Canadian football. The two sports are considered the primary variants of gridiron football.
And finally, conclusion number 3. The US American football is the most popular sport in the United States in terms of broadcast viewership audience. The most popular forms of the game are professional and college football, with the other major levels being high school and youth football. As of 2012, nearly 1,100,000 high school athletes and 70,000 university/college athletes play the sport in the United States of America annually. The National Football League, the most popular American professional football league, has the highest average attendance of any professional sports league in the world. Its championship game, The Super Bowl ranks among the most watched club sporting events in the world. The league has an annual revenue of around 15 billion US of American dollars, making it the most valuable sports league in the world. Other professional leagues exist worldwide, but the sport does not have the international popularity of other American sports like baseball or basketball.
And that is it for the 77th commentary blog, to be continued on the 78th commentary blog. Thank you.